Hey guys, welcome to this segment of FNN, or Friday Night News. Tonight I'm with Becca, and on this segment, Dan will interview King Minos from the Minoean civilization. Then Becca and I will talk to you guys about the Mycenaean civilization. Finally, Hallie will interview the princess of the myth called the Minotaur of Crete. Now, let's get started.
Hello everybody, I hope you're having a spectacular Friday night. Now we are going to talk about the miraculous King Minos. Now we're going to talk with the miraculous King Minos' ghost since he died more than a few years ago. Let's get started. What do you think your greatest achievement is after all this time?
One of my greatest achievements, I believe, is becoming the king of Crete and controlling the seas with my huge fleet of ships.
When you were the king of Crete, where was your palace located?
My palace was located at Knossos and was very magnificent and beautiful.
Let's talk about how you got to where you are being the king of Crete. Now let's talk about the burning question. Who were your parents?
My father was a god Zeus. He was the god of the Olympian gods and the supreme deity in Greek religion. My father Zeus also had to struggle for his power, including one time when Hera, Athena, and Poseidon tried to overthrow him as the Olympian god. He fell in love with a beautiful Phoenician princess named Europa. I was one of 3 sons Zeus and Europa had.
We all want to know how you trapped the Minotaur in that very complicated maze. And what was it called again?
The maze I built was named Labyrinth, but believe it or not, I didn't build it. I ordered Daedalus to build it because the Minotaur was terrorizing the community.
Why did you order Daedalus to make the maze out of all people?
Let me start from the beginning, when I asked Poseidon, the god of the sea, to give me a bull to sacrifice to the gods. The bull was so magnificent that I didn't want to kill the bull. When I tried to sacrifice another bull, though, Poseidon got mad and wanted revenge, so he made my beautiful wife, Pasiphae, fall in love with the bull. This is where Daedalus comes in, and he helped my wife, Pasiphae, hide inside a life-size cow when she gave birth to a Minotaur. He grew up fond of eating flesh and also cared very much for terrorizing humans.
So is that why you ordered Daedalus to build the maze called the Labyrinth?
Exactly. I thought that it would be a great idea to tackle the Minotaur and keep him off the streets of Crete, because any more longer and he would have eaten the mailman.
What were your trade connections like?
My trade connections with neighboring countries were outstanding, and I traded with multiple foreign countries throughout my years, such as Egypt, Syria, and we got many goods from our exports and imports, such as cypress wood, wine, curds, olive oil, wool, cloths, herbs, and purple dye.
Wow, it sounds like you were great at trading with foreign and neighboring countries. Well, that wraps it up with the amazing King Minos, who we thank so much for being on the show tonight. Now back to you, Becca.
Thanks, Dan. Those are some interesting facts about the Minoan civilization. Boy, would it be different to live with them.
That's right, Becca, it would be different. Now, let's talk about the Mycenaean civilization. Let's get started.
An island, Crete, was invaded by the Mycenaean civilization in 1450 BC. This is believed that is the start of the civilization. By 1100 BC, an earthquake occurred and destroyed the island of Crete. From 1600 BC to 1100 BC, during the Bronze Age, Greece was dominated by the Mycenaeans.
That's right, and they had many advances and achievements in pretty much everything. Pottery work such as stirrup jars, pitchers, craters, and chalices were made during this era. By 1500 BC, shaft graves were replaced by tolos, or beehive-shaped tombs. Members of royal families were buried with precious objects. Their magnificent tombs show that they believed in life after death. They thought that goods in from this world would be used in life after death. Wall paintings, statues, and shrines show that they had similar beliefs to the civilization before them, the Minoans.
Now, Adam, that brings us to our next point, the religion. They didn't build temples for worship, but rooms and houses and temples were set aside for worship. Outdoor shrines were also set up. An important god is the god Poseidon, or god of the sea and waters.
Those are some very good points, Becca. Religion is always important. Our final point before we pass it on to Dan, who is interviewing King Minos from the Minoan civilization, is the economy of the Mycenaeans. The Mycenaeans had commercial exchange with countries of the East Mediterranean, Egypt, and countries of the West. The international trade of the Mycenaeans was exclusively under the authority of the central power. As money did not exist, trade was based exclusively on barter.
Not only did they trade products, but they also traded people. Mercenaries were sent on military operations of foreign countries from which slaves were often brought on the mainland. There were two groups of people in the civilization, one who worked in the palace for the rulers and another who were self-employed. The scribes overlooked economic production and transactions. They also organized the distribution of rations and allotted work.
That is a very good point, Becca. That's all Becca and I have about the Mycenaean civilization, folks. Now, let's pass it off to Hallie, who is interviewing the princess of the myth called the Minotaur of Crete.
Here at FNN to talk about the full story of the Minotaur of Crete myth and interview a dream, a princess in the myth, and the mortal wife of blind god, and she is here to talk about her point of view. This myth is about a monstrous child and a charming prince. The myth is unknown of what to be about, and that's why I'm here today with a dream, to hear the first time ever about the real story of the Minotaur of Crete. Now, let's go live to FNN Studio 5. Now, Dream, tell me, what is this so-called famous myth about?
Well, Holly, this myth takes place on the island of Crete, home of King Minos. Poseidon the sea god bestowed a sacrifice, which is a bull, and this bull is beautiful, so King Minos' wife loved it so much. She decided to be greedy and keep it for the island of Crete. Poseidon was furious about this act and wanted to harm the kingdom.
Now, this is the part that everyone knows, but what is unknown about the myth is what did Poseidon do to get revenge on King Minos' kingdom?
Poseidon made King Minos' wife give birth to a monstrous child. The child is part human, part bull, and is called the Minotaur of Crete. The Minotaur lived in a huge indoor maze called the House of WAX, the palace of Minoean.
That's amazing. People have always had hypotheses about what Poseidon did to the kingdom of Crete. I would have never suspected this. I have a lot of questions to ask you. Let's first talk about the Minotaur. How was this child fed if it was in a maze at the palace?
Well, the kingdom, every 9 years, gathered up 7 boys and maidens of Athens to sacrifice to the bull kingdom.
Ah, I see. Now, were Athens mad about their tribute to the Minotaur?
Yes, they were. Then one of them took action to do something about it, and he is the Prince of Athens. His name is Theseus. He sailed over to Crete and set out to kill the Minotaur.
How did you contribute to this myth?
Well, when Theseus got to Crete, I saw him dock his boat, and it was like love at first sight. Then, when Theseus told me he was going to kill the Minotaur, I gave him a string so when he went into the maze to find the beast, he could follow the thread back to the maze. So I waited for him to come out from killing the Minotaur.
Interesting. I have one question. If the Minotaur is your sister, why would you give Theseus the thread to find his way back and encourage him to kill your sister? Do you and your sister have anything against each other?
I've never interacted with my sister, but I could never really if she was a bull, so there's no point of her living if I could never even see her in the maze.
I see. Now, what did happen? Did Theseus kill a bull? Did he ever find his way out of the maze?
Yes, Theseus did kill the Minotaur, and he indeed found his way back through the maze.
What happened after he killed the bull human?
Well, Theseus and I fell in love, and he sailed back to Athens, with me by his side.
You may not know, but a lot of things are based on the Minotaur. For example, the point of Crete on one side shows the Minotaur, and there's some pottery with the Minotaur painted on it, showing it getting killed. There's a lot more myths based on Crete, and the Minoans and the Mycenaeans.
I've heard that, although they're really hard to find.
Yes, sadly. Since there's a myth about you, are you familiar with other myths and other gods?
Of course, I read myths all the time, although the myth about the Minotaur of Crete is my favorite. Not that I'm in it, but about the structure. It's the most interesting myth in my opinion. It ends in a happy ending. Well, in a happy ending, I thought. Me and Theseus went our separate ways. While I was sleeping, he abandoned me on the shore of Athens, and I never saw him since. Although, when he left me, I was supposed to have granted with immortality by Artemis. Theseus doesn't have parents, or at least he doesn't know who his parents are. Theseus' cousin is Hercules, and he is friends with Poseidon because of what he did. I studied the myths about Hercules and Poseidon, and I'm very close with them.
A lot of people don't know a lot about gods because they're rarely friends with them. Do you study all gods, or at least most gods?
Yes, I'm familiar with at least 7 gods fluently that I remember. I have piles of books on my shelf, and they're all about mythology. I feel that gods understand me more than anyone, and I can count on them to be there whenever I need them.
Amazing! Most people don't even know about the most famous gods, or haven't even met one before. You must feel pretty lucky to know a lot, and to be gifted with immortality.
Yes, I am aware. If you would like, I can tell you about some stuff of my life. I have a very interesting life, especially because of the myth, the Minotaur Creed. I am best known for my contribute on killing my sister and sailing away with Theseus. Although no one knew that me and Theseus parted, they always expected us to be living in his palace.
Okay then, well, now that you've told me about your point of view on the Minotaur Creed myth, can you tell me some facts about mythology in general?
Yes, Greek mythology is very interesting, and there are many different parts. There are the gods and myths, like the Minotaur Creed. Is there anything specific you'd like to know?
Well, maybe. You can start off with you telling me a couple of important gods.
Okay, I'll start from the beginning. Gaia is Mother Earth. At first, there was no walkable land and no swimmable water.
Wow, so what did she do in order to make everything good?
She created mountains, oceans, and walkable land. Then she became lonely, so she married Uranus, who is Father Heaven.
I think I heard somewhere that she had to choose between 2 gods to marry. Is that true?
Yes, it's true. Gaia had to choose between Uranus and Pontus, who was a sea god. It was very hard for her to choose because she loved them both, but she chose Uranus.
Wow.
So they had many children, but some of them had 1 eye, and Uranus called them cyclopses, and some had 50 heads. Uranus got feared and began to hate the children. There were 12 children at first, the Titans. He decided to lock them away under the ground. Gaia was very upset and she cried and was miserable.
Greek mythology is an amazing thing. There's a whole story that goes with everyone and everything. Tell me more. Do you know anything about any of the children that were locked up and what they did?
Yes, Cronus is a brother of the 12 Titans and he rules them. He is their king. Zeus is the god of all gods, the king of all gods. And there was a war between him and his brothers and his sisters and the Titans. This war lasted 10 years.
Was Zeus a Titan?
Zeus is actually a son of Cronus. The war finally ended when Cyclops gave Zeus a lightning bolt and deafening thunder.
I've heard about the lightning bolt and thunder. There are many famous myths about him that I know.
Yes, it's a common known fact about Zeus that he has a lightning bolt. There are 3 more gods and goddesses that I know. If you would like, I can tell you all about them.
That'd be great. I think the viewers will be interested in this as I am.
Okay, there's Athena, who's the goddess of wisdom, and she became way wiser than both her parents, Zeus and Metis.
Sorry to interrupt, but I have one question.
Yes.
I've heard about the myth and the story of Hades. Can you tell me a little about him and the myth he is in?
Yeah, Hades is the brother of Poseidon and Zeus. He started off trapped inside his father, Uranus, because he hated his kids. While he was stuck inside, he punched his father and told him he would be sorry for his wrongdoings. He finally got out and never hesitated to fight ever since. War felt natural to him.
I can imagine how being trapped inside your father who hates someone can cause them to like war and fighting and be very mad and angry all the time.
Yes, and when the war ended, he declared to rule the underworld when Zeus was handing out realms for the gods and goddesses to rule. When he arrived in the underworld, he was very lonely. One myth tells the story of how Hades leaves the underworld and kidnaps Persephone and takes her to be his wife in the underworld.
This is so interesting. It must have been hard for Persephone to adjust her new life in the underworld. I would love to hear about all the gods and maybe you can come back. I think we're running out of time. Can you tell me about one more god? How about Poseidon?
He is the brother of Hades and Zeus. He is the god of the seas. He became friends with the son of Pontus, Minos, and they became great friends. There was a war and it ended when he struck the ground with his trident. The earth shook, boulders fell into the seas, and rivers overflowed.
That must have been a very powerful trident. Did Poseidon ever marry?
Oh yes, he married the daughter of Pontus, Medusa. Medusa was one of 3 sisters, and she was the only one who was mortal. Poseidon thought that made her vulnerable, so he was happy she had a special power, which was that if anyone mortal looked into her eye, they would turn to stone.
Oh yeah, Medusa. Instead of hair, she has snakes on her head. Well, thank you so much for telling me about some gods and goddesses and coming here today. I really enjoyed this interview. Now, Back to Adam at Studio 4.
Thanks, Hallie, for that. It was a very interesting myth. Now, let's recap what we learned tonight on FNN. First, Dan interviewed King Minos from the Minoean civilization. Then, Becca and I talked to you guys about the Mycenaean civilization. Finally, Hallie interviewed the princess of a myth called the Minotaur of Crete.
Well, folks, that's all we have here for tonight. It's been a great night, and we hope you enjoyed this segment of FNN. Special thanks to our special guest tonight and from the whole entire crew. Everyone, please have a safe and good night, and we'll see you next Friday night.